Malaysia's 15th general election will see for the first time 18 to 20-year-olds casting their ballots. The minimum voting age was lowered from 21 following a constitutional amendment that came into effect last year. Now, millennials have been touted as possible kingmakers of Malaysia. This age group, ranging between 26 to 40 years old, now accounts for at least 50% of Malaysia's working population, and it forms the largest voting bloc in the nation of 32 million people. Now, their concerns, they centre around bread and butter issues, climate change, as well as social mobility. According to Human Resources Online, top stressors of Malaysian millennials, well, it includes a longer-term financial future, family welfare, career prospects, finances, as well as health. The impact of youth participation, it could be seen in the 2018 elections. That's when Pakatan Harapan was bolstered by youth support, especially those aged between 21 to 29 years. And it was due to Pakatan Harapan's established internet presence that lent the party familiarity to millennials. Perhaps what is also of concern to lawmakers, the huge contrast in age between those in parliament and their voters. While the current median age of Malaysians is just over 30 years, around 70% of lawmakers in Malaysia are over the age of 50. Now, this may explain why millennials have gained traction politically over the past few years. The Malaysian United Democratic Alliance, or MUDA, is a youth political party formed by Syed Saddiq Syed Abdul Rahman in September of 2020. Now, in its very first outing, the party was able to snag the Puteri Wangsa seat in the Johor state elections of March this year. About half of the state's electorate is below the age of 40. And this prompted UMNO, Malaysia's ruling party, to remind its party to reach out to those millennial voters. This age group also has added weight now, with the Undi 18 bill taking effect on the 15th of December last year. This lowers the voting age from 21 to 18, and that means 5.8 million new voters have been added to the electoral roll of 15.3 million, bringing the total to 21.1 million. However, a survey carried out has shown that political literacy among youths aged 16 to 30 is quite low, which adds an extra challenge for those campaigning to reach out to this new group of voters. For more on this, we're joined by James Chai. He's visiting fellow at the Malaysian Studies Programme at the IC's Yusof Ishak Institute. Good evening, James. Thank you for joining us. What can you tell us about the primary concerns of young voters in this particular general election? How are the various parties actually attempting to meet those needs?
Thanks for having me. So what was very important from a survey that we've done was that they wanted primarily a corruption-free government. So this is the one issue that was overwhelmingly thought of as important by a lot of the youth that we have interviewed. At the same time, quite unexpectedly, we also know that cost of living is a very, very top issue that they are concerned with as they enter into a recessionary job market. Other than these two issues, a lot of young people in Malaysia has also talked about how education and healthcare is a very important concern for them. In terms of how each political parties are addressing these issues, we have seen that through manifestos, these are given extra attention, given the fact that there is a huge and sizable impact that young people may bring to this election that remains an unknown, and therefore a lot of political parties are erring on the side of caution in trying to give as much subsidies, attention, either in the form of free laptops, free university education, cancellation or subsidies of their national higher education fund. Those are also things that were mentioned that would have an impact in terms of how young people think about this election when it comes to who to vote.
So grassroots efforts like that, James, have been made to reach out to these younger voters. But how motivated are the younger generation to actually turn up and cast their ballots on November the 19th, do you think?
What is interesting from our survey is that although 63% of young voters have actually expressed disappointments to political actors, either they are politicians, government, or political parties, what is very interesting was that in spite of all of that, 79% of young voters between age 18 to 24 actually said that they will turn out to vote in the next general election. Normally, these questions are quite reliable in the surveys that we conduct, and therefore we can take that as what they will actually do. And when we further ask the question, why is it that you have still such high faith in voting in the next general election despite the disappointment? They said that they felt it was a sense of duty, and maybe because a lot of them have not voted for the first time, they haven't entered into a stage where they felt like their voting power had no ability to change the outcome, and therefore that certain sense of hopefulness that comes with youth is still very much present in Malaysia.
It will be that sense of hope that political parties will be relying on for those voters, the younger voters at least, to actually cast their ballots on the 19th. But with that voting age down, now we've got several million more of these young voters making their debut, nearly 6 million of them. But that move, James, it's also exacerbated, in a way, this long-standing problem that Malaysia has had of unequal political representation. So what's the risk of even more political apathy, perhaps cynicism as well among young citizens in this election?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right that even though there was a huge volume of new voters entering the system as a result of the historic constitutional amendment of lowering the voting age, this volume will be distributed rather unequally from urban areas, semi-rural and rural areas, predictably with urban areas which are larger in terms of seats due to malapportionment, having lower value of votes compared to people in the rural areas. So the good thing is that if you are in a rural area or a semi-rural area, because of the outsized ability of your vote, you can actually turn around a lot of these seats. And a huge portion of them are currently held by ministers. And a lot of these rural and semi-rural areas are also places in need for infrastructural development, like clinics, schools, highways, and so on. All of those are necessary, and therefore giving them an outsized ability to change the outcome of an election is the point of a democracy. However, like you said, on the flip side, a lot of the voters, if they are residing in urban areas, they're unlikely to have the same impact. In fact, the opposite is probably true, where they feel like voting doesn't make a difference to who wins. If you're on the side of the winner, you're adding to the huge majority would not be satisfying in terms of determining the outcome. If you were on the side of the loser, you would not stand a chance in changing the election outcome in that seat anyway. This may build to some sense of disillusionment as well as apathy in the long run. But as voters go through a few election cycles, I think that effect would be clearer than what you would see in this general election, when a lot of them still hold on to the belief that they can actually exercise their right to vote and make a difference.
James, thank you very much for that. James Chai there, visiting fellow at the Malaysian Studies Programme at the IC's Yusof Ishak Institute.